Good afternoon. As you all come in, just as a reminder, um, there is a bit.ly on the bottom left-hand corner of the screen. That bit.ly is the link to our session agenda. That agenda has all of the links for all the activities or things that we're going to be doing throughout the session. So please make sure that you do access that. Right now that before we begin, and we'll be beginning at 2:05, that you click on the link for the bell ringer. And what we're asking is based off of your experience, maybe some research or things that you've had conversation, that you share one word or one thing that you think or you feel makes a hybrid classroom successful. And for those that are just come in, please make sure that you put your name, your school, and your role inside of the chat.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to those of you who are just now chiming in with us. We are delighted to share some information with you today on hybrid instruction for secondary teachers. But before we begin, please make sure that you remember to register for this course in NESIS so that you can receive your CEUs. And also don't forget to sign in the chat as well. So even if you are in the room with another teacher, you do need to make sure that you sign in as well. All right, so let's go ahead on and jump on in. Okay, so for this session, what we want to do is we want to dive into the why of hybrid instruction, what it looks like for Hope County schools, as well as take some time to provide you with a few strategies and tools that'll help you get started. So before we get on in there, let's talk about this. How many of y'all play punch bug and no punch back with your children? I know you do when we're traveling. That's what we play. But listen, you got to tell your kids just like tap your shoulder. Don't really punch me. You know, 'cause then they might get ideas for a little bit later. So what we're going to do, we're not going to play that. Okay. So keep y'all hands to yourselves. We're going to play a little game called Honk If You. So you know how you're traveling, the other game where you're looking at the bumper stickers and you're trying to figure it out and you're laughing. So what we want you to do is we want you guys to take a look at the bumper stickers that are on the screen and think about which of those sayings resonates with you the most concerning hybrid learning. You know, do you feel like hybrid learning provides a deeper and more effective learning for students? Or do you believe that hybrid learning is less effective and twice the work? You know, when the poll is released, what you're going to do is select the one that resonates with you the most. And we're going to give you about 3 minutes to kind of think about it, to select. Once you choose, please put in the chat beep, beep, B-E-E-P, B-E-E-P, okay? And that'll let us know that we can go ahead on and get started with our discussion. So we're going to go ahead and release this poll. See if I can click the right. There we go. All right. All right. So let's talk about. All right. So can we get like a couple of volunteers to talk about what they selected and why you chose that? Like, why did that particular bumper sticker resonate with you the most? So if you just raise your hand and then we can jump on in there. Where's the screen? Here it is. Yeah, cutting up. Or we could just call on some people too. That'll work. Oh, let's start with Miss Tilly. Miss Tilly, which one did you select and why did that one resonate with you the most?
I was actually struggling between the
Okay.
first one and the second one. I wish I could have had two choices because I would have selected the first two. Um, I'm just not a fan of virtual learning. I would rather have my kids in the classroom, hands on. A lot of times, the kids turn on their Zooms and they walk away. Um, or they're just not participating, and
Mhm.
there's nothing really you can do about it, no matter how many times you call their names or ask the kids to unmute their mic and respond and have these discussions. A lot of them still don't. I think you can clear up misconceptions a lot easier in the classroom with the kids face to face. So I wanted to pick the first and the second one, because I also think that it is a lot of work on the teachers to have face to face as well as virtual. And the virtual, I think, is hard on a lot of teachers because I know for me, it really stresses me out that my HOL students aren't getting what my face to face students are getting. And I feel like I need to try to do more to reach them. And it's hard, which really, I mean, most of the time it's the students that are not participating in what I have already planned for them. Does that make sense?
Okay. All right, Miss Simpson.
Sure. So I picked that I think the majority winner from the results, that teaching hybrid and online or and in person is kind of like having two jobs. A lot of that is because things that work really well for my students in the classroom are not necessarily things that transition easily to online. So sometimes I find myself doing the same assignment, but having to make two different versions of the same assignment, especially teaching a repeaters course of English 2 this semester. I've got students in the room who really need to be working on paper. They need highlighters, they need sticky notes, they need to touch and feel because otherwise they're distracted by other things. And I feel like my students online really need those things too, but aren't always getting them.
Okay. All right, Miss Ringrose.
So I picked the one with the cognitive overload. For science, especially when you really want to engage students using inquiry ideas, it's difficult to do that in an online format. Especially with the time constraints, I feel like I'm just shoving. I tell the students sometimes, like, your mouth is open and here's the fire hose and here's all this like scientific vocabulary that you have to know and for some reason put it together. So it's very difficult, like making those connections between the vocabulary online, especially in the science format. And even in person with those students, I'm trying to get them as much information as possible while they're face to face, because at home, they're just not completing the work themselves. So it's almost like you're, instead of grouping the information up into very small workable chunks, you're just having this massive overload of concepts and chunks at one time, and they're not retaining a lot of that information.
Okay. What about one of the amazing teats? That's what my daughter calls them. So either one, Miss Teats or Mr. Teats, one of y'all want to?
Okay.
Okay.
I said the one talking about how it's flexibility of content delivery.
Okay.
Because you, of course, you have different students that learn different ways. You have a group of students that can learn online perfectly fine, and then you, of course, you have the ones that need to be a little more hands-on. So it being hybrid allows us to be a little more flexible and make things work for everybody.
Okay.
Honey, I said the same thing.
It was meant to
Not
be.
supposed to call him honey right now.
It was,
meant to be.
it was meant to be. I love it. All right. So I'm going to share the results with you so that you guys can actually see that, see what you all chose. So as a whole, and it looks like we have a lot of West Hope knows in the building. So it looks like you guys, as a whole, believe that hybrid learning provides flexibility of content delivery, which is pretty good. That shows that you guys have a positive view of hybrid learning and what it can do for students. And then those who don't, is we still today, we really hope that we're going to be able to provide you with some information that might be able to help you to kind of release a little bit. So take some of the weight off of your shoulders. We're going to try to make sure that between this session and the next session, we provide you with some more materials to allow you to be able to make life just a little bit easier for you.
So let's start with our definition. Just like in any lesson, we want to start with the foundation, okay? So here's what we mean when we say hybrid learning. Hybrid learning is an educational model where some students are face-to-face and others are online, okay? The difference is the learning is linear and not repetitive or recursive. So learning activities are both asynchronous and synchronous. So if you notice in the definition, there are some pieces or elements that are highlighted. So let's talk a little bit more about those, okay? The mixture of both our online and face-to-face students is something that, at least for now, it's unavoidable. We're gonna have to go through with it, all right? Believe it or not, there are still some employees that report to the building, and there are still some employees that work remotely. So even though our governor has said, okay, let's go ahead and offer back face-to-face instruction, there are still some employees within the world who are still not reporting back into the building. So what do we mean when we say linear versus repetitive? All right. It means that you're not going to loop your instructions for different groups of students. So think about when we first started out in the beginning, perhaps some teachers, they would teach their students, their A students, one thing on Monday, they'll teach their B students another thing on Tuesday, and then they would work on something else while you was working with the opposite group of students. This is way different from that, okay? In this model, your lessons should be linear, Monday through Friday. It should be a continuous thing. You're not gonna go back repeating days of different content, all right? You are teaching and you're leading your lessons as normal. It's almost as if you had all of your students with you. The only difference is the location of some of your students. Some of your students are with you and some of your students are not, but the learning is still going to be continuous. It's still going to be linear, okay? You're going to teach the same content at the same time simultaneously to your students who are with you and those who are not. So in it all, we want to make sure we understand that this is something that was not brought up out of the air, right? This is not something that the DIF team or anybody just decided, hey, we're just going to throw a monkey wrench in there and we're going to come up with something new, okay? We are preparing our Hope County students to compete globally amongst others. Hybrid learning is not new just for Hope County. This is something that we've done within our college courses as well, all right? And so we want our Hope County students to be able to compete globally amongst other students from within different districts, within our state, globally, in order for them to be college and career ready.
So college and universities around the world have already begun implementing hybrid learning on their campuses. And so, we chose to look at our UNC system because, most of our students, that's where they're going, right? At least one of the 17. However, even the UNC school system have realized that this is a really important thing. So out of the money that was given from the federal government to the states and to the different entities, the UNC school system chose to use 44.4 million to fund their digital learning accelerator. That is a program designed to educate and to provide professional development to educators on hybrid learning inside of the UNC school system, right? So it's not only a Hope County thing, this is actually, in college. And of that, you have over 20,000 students that are going to be indirectly impacted by this, this program. And so how many schools use this within the UNC school system? All of them, right? So when we want to prepare our students using the content in our classroom, we want to make sure all these skills are there, but we also want to make sure that they are prepared as well also for when they leave out of our schools, out of our classroom and go to college. We want them to have that same environment. So it's nothing new, right? And to make sure that they have that experience. So then when we start talking about preparing them for career, we know that that technology has changed so much, right? Without technology, we wouldn't be able to do this hybrid learning environment, right? So with that being said, jobs are changing because of technology. So I go to Walmart all the time, right? I say I'm gonna go in there for one thing and I come out with 25, right? Okay, so initially Walmart started creating these neighborhood markets, right? And so initially, when you went inside of there, you could run in, get your groceries and leave, right? Well, there's one in Fayetteville that when you walk inside, instead of having different cashiers, it has no cashiers. So most of our jobs that we're preparing our students for are medium skilled jobs, that they can actually get those skills, right? Well, what happens is that manager that used to be a manager of the cashiers, now that job is gone. That job now goes up to the high skill job, because now they take those positions and now they're embedding them into engineers. So now instead of getting a manager to manage the cashiers, there's no cashiers in that Walmart. It's all self checkout. So now instead of that manager, now it's transferred to the engineers, and then they're taking those jobs and they're dropping them down to low skill jobs. So even though job force is changing, so with technology, everything is changing, and our job as educators is to ensure that our students are prepared for college, career, and life. So now what are we doing inside of our classrooms, right? Because we're talking about hybrid learning. And so we're talking about what can we do inside of our classroom to prepare our students? Okay, so one approach that has been adopted across our county is called high impact strategies. And these are 10 instructional practices that reliably increase student learning whenever applied. But the core of these, honestly, is just good teaching, because we are not saying that hybrid learning solely is responsible for increasing student learning. We're not saying that. What we are saying, hybrid learning paired with good teaching strategies will increase student learning. All right, so there are 10, but we're only focusing on these 6, because these are the 6 when they are implemented inside of your classroom, aligned directly with hybrid learning. So I heard some conversations about some of the struggles that we're having with our online students and compared to our face-to-face students. What we're saying is some of those things, there's nothing we can do about it. We can't do nothing about the fact that we want our students to have paper, pencil. We want them to have the highlighter. We want them, there's nothing we can do about it if those kids have never walked inside of our classroom, right? If they have been virtual the whole time, there is nothing we can do about it. But what we are saying is, if we use these strategies, whether or not they write on a piece of paper, or whether or not they highlight, whether or not they do those things that we want them to do that are hands-on, we believe that if we do these strategies with fidelity in our hybrid learning environment, they're going to get all the skills that they need. So what are these 6? So we have setting goals. That's making sure that our goals are clear, right? If I tell my daughters to clean their room, I feel like that's a clear goal. It's not, because her room is still a mess. When my daughter says, "Mom, can you write me down a list and tell me exactly what I need to do?" She says, and highlight it. Why? Because she wants to be able to check it off. That is a clear goal. It's clear and it's attainable, okay? Making sure our lessons are structured in a way that promotes learning. We know that we've had online classes and you're like, what, where are we going with this? We want to make sure that our lessons are structured in a way that enforces routines and scaffolds the learning, because some of our students are not going to come already with that prior knowledge. Explicit teaching, making sure that we not only teach what the students need to know, but also model it. Okay, it's not okay just to, I'm just going to put some information on Canvas, but some of our students actually need us to model it. Show me. I can't highlight at home, but Ms. Simpson, can you show me how to highlight using the highlight feature inside of Google Docs? Working examples, provide our students with examples, and making sure that our examples not only resonate with our high level students, our low level students, but our medium students, also resonates with our boys and our girls. So making sure that our examples there are to help support our students. I want to say one thing I noticed when I did reflection, a lot of my examples in classes were to middle level girls. I've never been a boy, don't want to be a boy. So it resonated with my middle tier girls. It wasn't resonating with my students whose parents own their own business. My parents don't own their own business, okay? Or my students who are living in poverty. So I have to make sure that when I teach my students and I provide examples, that I provide examples that resonate with all of my students. Collaborative learning. We want our students to be able to not only collaborate within the classroom, but with those that are virtually as well. Because guess what? In the real world, you don't get to choose who you collaborate with. And sometimes even working, you say, well, okay, we're going to work here. But this pandemic has shown that we all had to work together when we weren't in the same place. And it was a little difficult, right? working on Zoom and working together. My kid is hollering someone else's kid. There's dog barking. We got someone on our team who bird likes to join our meetings sometimes. It's not always easy doing that. But guess what? We have to make sure that we prepare our students to be able to work together. And you don't want to isolate your students. Oh, I have all my face-to-face students in one group and all my online students. That doesn't promote a family, right? So we have to make sure that we use these strategies and multiple exposures. We have to make sure that we provide our students with multiple opportunities to, I was going to say play with the text. I'm so sorry. But multiple opportunities to interact with the information, to demonstrate mastery, to get understanding. It's not one and done. I don't learn one and done. I need multiple opportunities to interact with that information. I did not go through all of it, and and there's some more research and there's some more things. So if you are actually interested in this, because this is a study that was actually done, so this isn't something we're just throwing together. It's been thrown together. Please let us know, and we will send out the study so you can actually read it. But yes, it's called High Impact Teaching Strategies, and what we're saying is that you can't have one without the other. Well, you can. So the high impact strategies are just good teaching, but we're saying the good teaching, and we're saying that hybrid learning, when you pair these together, we know that there's going to be success. So what we're saying is we realize that it sounds great in I guess you could say as a thought, but the real world is, how's this really going to affect, or when does this really happen in my classroom? So right now we are going to look at what you all said makes a hybrid learning environment successful. Okay, so this is a Wordle. So the bigger the word, the more times it was put. Miss Leslie, what are you thinking? I see your mouth drop. Tell me, unmute yourself. What's your mind saying?
I really like this Mentimeter. I like how you could ask the students and this shows up. I love that. And I see mine, which is really cool.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty neat. Yeah.
I saw her mouth was like, I was like, oh, what is it? Okay, I'm looking at some other people's faces. And I'm going to call on those people who ain't smiling too. So if you ain't smiling and you right here, I'm calling. Mr. Corway, I mean, you are smiling, but my eyes stopped right on you. So you're next. What word did you choose? Sorry.
One right in the middle, I chose organization.
Okay, tell me why you think that's important. Or you feel that's important.
Well, you're lesson planning for two separate types of students. And so you have to make sure that you're organized with Canvas and with what you're going to plan on doing with the face-to-face students. And if you're not, then you get to where you're doing your HOL students and you're out of whack because you're so used to teaching the face-to-face. So you have to be organized in regards to hybrid learning. Absolutely,
which goes right back to some of those strategies that we just talked about, which is good teaching. Mr. Jeremy, I love Mr. Jeremy. Every time I see him, he's a hoot. I love it. So you share something with us. You're muted. Your mic is muted, Mr. Jeremy.
I thought I did that. Okay, sorry about that. So the organization is obviously a big one, and I want to give the students a little credit here also. And what I mean is, the kids are going to pick up on the fact if the teacher is organized or not. And I think as an educator, you'll lose credibility with the kids either in your classroom or at home, because parents are at home watching what you're doing as well. And if you're not organized and it seems like you don't know what you're doing, then I think you'll lose credibility, on the student/family's end. And that's why I think organization is so important. All of the aspects that were mentioned, but I wanted to throw that piece in there too, because I think that's as important as anything else. Because again, we need to, as educators, as classroom teachers, we need to make sure that that we present ourselves as professionals in the community.
Absolutely. I have a child who was remote for some time. Absolutely, I agree. All right, so we've heard the last two people have said organization. Someone else give us something that they said other than organization, which is as valuable. I can call on someone.
Can I go, Miss Covington?
Absolutely.
I put on there monitoring because I look at it from the media kind of aspect. Not just using like Go Guardian, but keeping up with kids. Like, it's been tough keeping up with like attendance and have they turned XYZ in and all of that kind of stuff. So I think if you stay on top of your monitoring, which kind of goes back to organization, which is what they were saying earlier. I think just staying on top of your monitoring, circling back to kids, asking them, why haven't you turned this in? What can I do to get this tool to you? Or do you not understand how to turn this in? Or lots of things like that are very important.
Absolutely. Thank you. So if no one else would like to share that, Ms. Tilly, I see you unmuted yourself. Go ahead.
Yeah, I put organization, but I see that word patience. I like that. Whoever put that. The other thing I was going to say is I wish we could see some of the other words a little bigger, but I did put organization, but whoever put patience, that's a good word to describe this.
Now, I'm going to say patience isn't one of those 6 high impact strategies, but I believe it's before those impact strategies. Absolutely. Patience. And you also have to give patience to the students, but also patience and grace to yourself, because this is something new that we weren't doing before. So, it's okay if it's not perfect, the first or second time. But definitely planning and organization will definitely help you get the desired results that we want, but actually, yes, patience as well. All right. So what we're going to do now is, yes. Mm-hmm.
This is Diane. I put relationship. Well, I didn't put it in this one. That's what I was thinking when I was on this morning at 9 o'clock. Relationships, because you got to build some kind of relationship with your kids, whether they're in your room face to face or whether you're working with them virtually. And I think that's almost as important as the other things that we're doing with those, what do they call, high impact strategies. Because
Absolutely.
if you have a relationship with kids, you can't reach them, and no strategy will work.
Mm-hmm. You're absolutely right. Students will go above and beyond for teachers that they feel do, care, and they have that relationship.
Ms. Covington, that engagement, that's a pretty big word on here that got a little big, right? A big size. You mean to tell me I can't lecture my students on Zoom the whole time? That was my dry humor.
You don't want to lecture the whole time, face to face or online.
That's right. And so go ahead, Ms. Mitchell. I'm sorry.
We want to break it up. Divide your class into thirds. A third of the time we do this, a third of the time we do this, and the next third we do that. Or however you're going to do that, whether you're going to do it half or thirds or 3/4 or whatever. But nobody wants to sit and listen to one person the whole time, especially if you've got a group of kids who aren't prone to communicating with you and don't wish to communicate with what you're talking about.
That's absolutely true. And I think that's not only for children, but also for adults. And so we also want to model what we would like for our students as well. And so that is something absolutely that's very valid. So with that, we are going to look at some actual real life scenarios. We get phone calls all the time, emails from parents and students. And so we're going to look at some real life scenarios and see how we would solve these scenarios that really happen every day inside of our classrooms.
So as Nicole was going through those high impact teaching strategies, I'm sure you were seeing some things that you already do with your students or that you can do now in a hybrid situation, maybe with a few tweaks. So we're going to jump on a Google slide deck, all of us together, to take a look at some scenarios that many teachers have told us about this year or that we've had a lot of phone calls of, and give you guys an opportunity to share some strategies, because that's one thing that we have seen, like when we do these things with Teacher Connects, like moments when teachers share, like when someone presents a problem and a teacher shares how they've tackled it. It's just, it's been really great to hear, like, God, I wish I'd have thought about that before. So we wanted to give you a chance on some of these scenarios. So this slide deck that Sam has up is in your agenda, and I'm throwing it in the chat now so that you guys can jump on there. And so the first slide is those high impact teaching strategies, if you decide you want to refer back to them. But as you go through the slides 2 through 5, we want you to click on the text box and then add a strategy of how maybe you've addressed that this year. And you may not have a strategy for each slide, but start going around. And so, for example, let's look at slide 2. This was one saying that Malik is a virtual student who missed my synchronous Zoom session this morning. So how is Malik going to get this information that we discussed and be able to get his work done? But I'm working with students in class right now. So you can jump on there and add your text box. So one thing you may say is like, well, I post my lesson information with clear instructions in Canvas. So if they miss that, they can go back and catch the replay and still find out what to do today. There's so many things that you guys are doing. So jump on there. We're going to set the timer for 7 minutes for you guys to start adding some strategies. Oh yeah, create new text box. You don't have to all stay in one text box. Feel free to, so people earlier this morning, we're adding in the comment feature if that's easier on the slides, but new text box or comment feature, whichever you prefer. That was a question for us. Let us know that again if you don't mind. You guys are coming up with some great suggestions. We're going to give it about 1 more minute.
All right, let's start looking at some of these scenarios and like kind of sum up what you guys have put. So let's start with scenario, the first one there back with Malik. And I'm looking at some of the stuff that you guys posted, and in summary, it seems like you guys really like hit it on the head that you can put this information in Canvas. So structuring your lesson so that kids understand like your sequence, and now when we think about those high impact strategies of adding clear goals, like as I move through this, whether it's a daily plan or this unit, what is the goal of the lesson as the kids are going through, and the videos being your direct explicit teaching as well as your worked examples. And then again, adding all that in Canvas. And it's not so that your kids are spending so much time on the screen, like they can still be doing hands-on stuff, but now they can go refer back to this and find all the information that was presented in class, or maybe even go back and clarify something. So posting those videos, assignments in Canvas where students can find them, it not only helps that virtual student that wasn't in the session today, but if a student was absent, even face-to-face, they always know where to go find your information. So let's take a look at that next scenario where most of my students who are virtual keep their cameras off and barely talk. It's hard enough to keep them engaged when they're coming to school. Now, what am I supposed to do? So try not to correlate having the camera and mic off to students being inattentive or not engaged. So when they do call here and they're having issues with their Chromebooks, we do let them know that it helps with connectivity issues or lagging when cameras are off, not just one student's camera, but really anybody's. It always helps with that connectivity issues. But also sometimes the background can be embarrassing for students. What, like, you know, all of our students maybe come from the best home situation, so they might not want to show that. And sometimes you guys wouldn't want to see my hair first thing in the morning either. So keep those things in mind and try not to equate that with them being inattentive. However, we've all been in Zooms all year, and we do know it is easy to check out when your mic and camera are off. So having interactive components in your Zoom session is important for check-ins and to keep students engaged. So those collaborative opportunities that have students work together, like Jamboard, and we really wanted you to experience one today, but we didn't know the volume. So you see what you're doing in your Google Slides. We wanted that to be in Jamboard. So essentially, instead of you adding a text box, you would have added a sticky note, and you can still do multiple slides that can guide your lesson and kids can be on. So they don't have to be on your Zoom, but they can join your slide deck or your Jamboard together. Also, you have breakouts in Zoom that some of you guys have been experimenting with. So again, you might not have your kids in class on Zoom for your like maybe direct instruction, but then when you push them to collaborate, you may have them join so you can have face-to-face students and students at home in your breakout session. But then make sure you might have a protocol, because even when adults get in a breakout together, not everybody jumps to be the first one to talk. So you might have to have some simple protocol, like whoever's name comes first alphabetically, you start sharing first, or whoever's birthday first. So something that kind of gets that person talking, because it's hard to break that ice. And then lastly, the chat feature. So I had someone earlier and I completely forgot to mention, remember, you've got Go Guardian chat, you've got chat in here. You see, you guys are, some people are leaving comments, like responding to each other in the comment feature of a Google Doc. So there's still ways that you can have kids in class collaborate with kids that are at home. So the more opportunities, we've had someone ask even about the Zoom poll. That was pretty awesome, wasn't it? So you can do a quick check-in. We are doing a Teacher Connect on that in 2 Fridays. So if you're interested, come check us out on that. And let's take a look at that next scenario. So we've got students, we're supposed to release students from Zoom to complete the assignment. So essentially, remember, we have synchronous time, kids in class, kids at home together for the whole group, or direct instruction or modeling, whatever. You have them together at the same time, and then you release kids to do independent practice. So then what are kids at home supposed to do when they have questions? And I've heard you guys say, like, the kids in class get more of me, and I want my kids at home to have that experience too. So it's still not going to change. It is a little bit different. They're at home, and that's something we can't get around. However, there are things that you can do to, like we've said, the collaboration piece on the previous slide, ways to kind of bridge that. But you can also, if you look on the next one, you've got some schedules that you are set up that you can look at. So for example, a teacher shared that I have my synchronous Zoom time. My kids at home, she even called them Zoomies and Roomies. Isn't that kind of cute? That they are all together, and I do my whole group lesson. And then when I release them for independent practice, my kids in class go ahead and get started. And then she says, I go and sit down with just my Zoom kids for a moment, for 10 minutes or so, let them ask questions, clarify anything, make sure they can find what they need. She said, and then she shuts everything down for 10 to 15 minutes. It gives her mind to get her papers together, to get her mind settled. And because everything is in Canvas, right? Like your videos are in Canvas, your instructions are in Canvas, and that productive struggle is helpful. I mean, that's when I learned. So let kids get, they know that you're not available for 10 to 15 minutes, and then you can open back up for questions, whether in-class questions. You can open Zoom back up, and your Zoomies at home know that they can jump back on at that time if they have questions. And I think it was Diana Drew this morning said that she uses Go Guardian Chat. If kids are at home, have questions, they can put that in there and she can address that then either in the chat or have them join the Zoom. So you have some ways to help you with your structure. And then also here you see posted in Canvas, you know, the way that that is set up to help kids. So it's not that it has to look like this, but you see direct instruction and you can publish each page daily, right? So like whatever we talked about in whole group today, that's there. It could be a video of Zoom. It could be a video you made, a video you found, whatever content you want the kids to know. And then you see independent practice, that activity is there. So when I say, okay, Zoom is done, go to your independent practice, these kids can easily see where to go get work done at. And then our last scenario here, I teach both face-to-face and online students. Teaching has always been hard work, but now you're asking me to make 2 lesson plans. Well, really 3, because we know we also have to have emergency lesson plans for when tech doesn't work. And we know that's how a lot of you guys have felt. So we hope that at the end of this, we do know that there are considerations as you're setting up activities or like the work that your kids are doing. I think I heard someone say, like, I'm keeping in mind what my face-to-face kids are going to be doing compared to how that looks digitally at home. But it is a linear lesson plan. So Monday, everybody's learning the same content and doing the same activity. It's still one lesson plan. It's not repetitive where it switches the next day. And think about, you can also, like, we don't want kids behind the screen always. So if it is better in class for your kids to have paper and pencil, right, they can still do that. Take a picture of it and still upload that assignment into Canvas. It's not that you can't collect that paper copy. Like if I want to go it said I turned it in and you lost it. Well, now you can go look in Canvas if that picture's there. It just does help clean up some. Sorry, I'm going to pause my internet connection. Am I robot-y? Am I good? Am I there? I'm not good. Okay.
You good.
She said I'm good to go. So you know that can still, even if they're doing a paper copy, I can still take a picture and upload. Teacher can still connect paper. Because sometimes we do want kids writing on that, but at the other end of that, if you had kids sign up to be 100% online, they know instead of maybe highlighting on paper, if they can't print it, they signed up for an online version and they are going to have to do that online. So there are some ways around that, but we still want you planning one lesson. We don't want you guys to be overloaded. And so kind of in summary for today, sorry, it looks like there will be students next year who are virtual. There's nothing we can do about that with our current climate. That is unfortunately out of all of our hands. So what that can mean for you guys is that some of you may be a teacher of all online students, or some of you may be teaching in a hybrid situation where you have virtual and face-to-face together for a portion of your class period. So instead of viewing Canvas as an add-on, and I know with the timing of when we got it, it seems like it's a patch because of COVID, but it's not. It's really a way we want you to use that learning management system that's going to help you and your kids to where they go and learn new information or review, or maybe you front load information. And now that time when they're synchronous, when they're spending it with you, instead of hearing your lecture, like Aunt Diane was saying earlier, instead of always lecturing, maybe we're digging into something because we watched that video yesterday and now we're doing something in that with that information during our synchronous time. So we want you to, instead of using it as an add-on, think about how it can make you and your students' life easier, whether it's finding directions, like, so you verbally said the assignment directions, but kids still say, like, what am I supposed to do? Have you gone and looked in Canvas because I said it, and they know it's there. So it really does help with some of that communication, and we don't want it to be seen as an add-on. But posting in there and thinking about those high impact teaching strategies that you guys are already doing will really help you and your students, but it'll help your students be successful in your class, as well as prepare them for the next grade level, or college or career, whatever their next step is. And so in closing, as you refer back to these strategies, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. And if you want to see what this looks like, please come hang back out with us next Friday, as we're going to do a model lesson, not a model, like a example lesson of what it could look like. So we'll have some in-class students, and then you guys would simulate our online students and kind of see how some of these strategies can work. So we look forward to seeing you next Friday. We hope you have a wonderful day and a great weekend. Bye, you guys.
Thank you.
We appreciate y'all.
Thank you. Bye-bye.